I mean, we're having our ToastTalk today. So why are we here at Lentor Modern?
Yeah, you're surprised, right?
Yes.
You see, Michelle, we have helped our clients on the asset progression planning. So we have clients who bought new development from us. It's because there's so much of capital gain. Some of them, after they take their keys, remember we actually buy 2 pineapple.
Oh, yeah.
And then roll in for the auspicious.
You're right,
Yes.
right.
And then they when they take their keys, right, there's only 2 kinds of thought. For homestay, the other one is to be a landlord.
Yeah, so coming to think of it, right, because today the topic that we're going to discuss is about the concerns of a landlord.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's head on in to meet up with Jamie Lin, the business development manager, as well as Stephen Wong, who is a partner in the law firm Matthew Chiong Partnership.
Right, he's joining us again today. Yeah, let's go. I'm so excited to see them. Come, let's go. Hey, Stephen.
Hi, Jamie.
Hey, hi.
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again. Hey, Jamie, thanks for connecting us with Stephen once again.
It's my pleasure, my pleasure. Yeah.
I see you all see Lentor Modern like so long, right? So which unit you are getting?
Yeah, he's gonna get me the penthouse.
Wow, so blessed. And never mind, later we just issue the 5%.
Okay, we'll get a check from you.
So you want to be a landlord or you going to have for own stay?
Of course, landlord.
That's a good one. Yeah. Smart.
So Jamie, can you just stick around for a while? We want to show you the show flat later.
Okay, sure.
But meanwhile, let's capture Stephen to another cozy corner.
Can,
we're going to
can.
ask him more
Sure.
questions.
Okay,
Go
we'll see you
ahead.
later.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Come, Stephen. Let's go.
Hey, hi Stephen.
Hello.
Remember the last episode we were saying that we have a lot more questions to ask you,
Yeah,
and
sure.
today we're really very happy that have you with us,
pleasure
so
is
that
all.
we can really post all the concerns that our audience has.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Sure, we really appreciate that.
So today, right, we are actually touching on the concern of a landlord. You know, clients, right, they always have this concern after they pick up a key, when they get the house, they want to rent it out. With that, right, as a real estate salesperson, okay, we have various platforms to perform due diligence check, okay, on the tenants that we bring to our client. But despite all this, right, after securing the unit for the landlord, however, you know, by right, our duties and responsibilities should stop there.
Yeah.
Okay, but the Yappies have always been, you know, still render our service all the way until the exit handover. But having said that, for example, let's say if the tenant were to default in their rental after they rent a place, okay, what kind of protection does the landlord has? Let's say, you know, the renter is not paid.
You see, when it comes to doing the business of leasing a property, right? I think, as you said earlier on, it's important to conduct the due diligence, and part of the due diligence obviously is to maintain the contact information of the tenant at all times, you know. And when we say contact information, what we mean is that somehow or another you guys will be able to trace the tenant. But I think before we even get into that, I think what's important for a landlord to deal with is to consider the whole business of renting, landlord-tenant, as a business. So as such, certain things has to be done to protect themselves, and they have to be prepared to take losses. In the event, say your tenant is expat tenant, right? It would make sense that you get the company of the tenant to pay the rent as opposed to the tenant themselves. Because what happens is, in a lot of these instances, most expat tenants will just run away at the middle of the night and just vaporize off the face of this earth, you see.
It's kind of scary, huh? Okay, but the thing is that if it's under a corporate lease, but what happens if it's a personal lease, then, you know, the company will not be able to step in to assist on that.
Yes, of course. In which case, I do believe that it is the landlord's duty, right, in order to mitigate potential big losses, to actually have a good relationship with the tenant without contravening the rules of quiet possession. Having said that, though, you can't be micromanaging a tenant all the time. So one of the ways to ensure that you get money is to make sure gyro payments. Yeah.
So in such instance, how can the landlord actually recover the outstanding rental payment?
In the event of such an unfortunate incident occurring, right, it would actually make sense for the landlord to strictly enforce their right of contract, such as the right of re-entry and the right of eviction. I do believe that most tenancy agreements drafted by some of the bigger agencies, right, will allow right of re-entry and tenant eviction, meaning upon not paying a rent, say for 7 or 14 days, right, the landlord will then have the right, ensuring that there's no one else inside the house, of course, to just lock up the house and kick out the tenant.
With that, right, most of the times these days we are using like WhatsApp messages, or sometimes we do like email. Will these two kinds of reminders be suffice for such kind of action to be taken by the landlord?
A WhatsApp evidence in of itself can serve as a notice for payment.
Alright.
But in order to throw out a tenant per se, right,
Okay.
one will actually need to hire a lawyer to do the eviction notice in accordance to the Conveyancing Law of Property Act. And the thing is, how can the landlord recover the act in the event of a renegade tenant? Section 18A of the CLPA governs that. And one thing I need to inform or warn everybody about landlord recovery, right? It's if indeed your tenant just walks away after receiving the eviction notice, you're considered very, very lucky already.
Let's say if the landlord wants to repossess the unit, but in instances whereby, let's say if one of the family member of the tenant is always at home, so how do we manage that aspect?
You're going to have to get lawyers in to evict them already at this point in time.
Okay.
But even then, there'll be a lot of challenges. Because in Section 18A, there are two components to it that secures the tenant's right to stay inside that piece of land. It's number one, the moment they receive the eviction notice, they pay money into court for the amount of money that's due and owing. They get to stay there.
Okay.
Then number two, you can go to court, you can fight it all out. You win the case, and they pay money into the court within 4 weeks. Even though you win the case, they can stay there.
Is there any case that you really remember, the worst scenario that you represented or you came across?
So basically, he did not pay the money, and even after he lost, he didn't pay into the court. When the bailiffs came to throw him out, he claims that his wife has cancer, and we just went back to court. I can't remember many times to throw him out, and he just keeps saying the same story. My wife's having cancer, and the court said, look, because of that, I'm not going to throw him out. So it just lived on there for 1.5 years.
Okay.
So this is the type of risk a landlord will run, renting a space to anybody. Which is why I suppose it will be really important for, number one, the due diligence to be done properly. You really need to know what type of people you're renting your house to, right?
Okay.
And number two, I think it's important also to have a good relationship with the tenant, so that it's not to actually make friends with the tenant, but rather to have this sense of, oh, is this guy gonna do something horrible to stay there and refuse to leave the
I think
house?
the proper communication with
Yeah.
the tenant, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with regards to the payment part, right, how many times of reminders do we really have to send before we proceed to the evidential stage?
I would say the moment they stop paying you rent, the next day you send out your eviction notice already. As I said, right, so after you win the court case, the tenant can pay within 4 weeks and the guy stays put. Having said that, inside the CLPA section 18A6, these rules does not apply in the event that you are evicting a tenant for something else other than for non-payment of rent. If you bust someone using the premises for something else other than it's intended for, 18A does not protect you. But having said that, 18A does give a tenant 2 bites of the cherry when it comes to defaulting rent. One of them is the moment they receive the eviction notice, they have to pay rent before the writ, and the other one is to pay rent after the trial.
Recently, we also know that there's quite a fair numbers of non-Singapore tenants that they cannot fulfill the minimum period of their tenancy to activate the diplomatic clause. So with that, is it landlords every right to recover the outstanding months of the fulfillment of the tenancy agreement? Or is there any way that they can contest to it?
I think we need to take a look at the reality and the theory, right? Because on paper, every lease you sign is an entire term lease, Meaning if you sign for 24 months, you're supposed to pay this landlord 24 months.
Yep.
So if this guy just runs away, right, the landlord in theory is supposed to be able to get the outstanding rent from him, barring any duties to mitigate lah. So the landlord cannot just say, oh, I'm just going to sue him for the 24 months, but I sit around and do nothing. The landlord will also need to get tenants, fulfill the tenancy outstanding 24 months, and then just get whatever losses he may have made after reasonable mitigation. But having said that, the reality of expat tenants is they tend to have this tendency to literally evaporate. So I really don't think it is possible or it makes any sense whatsoever for the landlord to actually go to the tenant's country to sue the tenant for the money. They won't do it.
I guess one way is whereby with the security deposit, the landlord is safeguarded.
Yes.
So that is one consolation.
Correct. Yeah. And then of course, like you say, the communication and the good relationship with the tenant does play a part.
Yes. Of
Yeah.
course.
Because like recently we have this corporate tenant who's not able to fill. Okay. After the 6 months, okay, the company, okay, actually pays the compensation to the landlord.
Yeah.
Okay, all the way to the end of the lease.
It will make sense that you get someone whereby the payment is paid by the company as opposed.
Everybody would
Yeah,
hope so.
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it will be a landlord's nightmare if it's a personal lease, and I don't wish to take that.
True.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, recently, right, we saw a case where the student left the condo looking like rubbish dump.
Yeah.
So it left the homeowner like dumbfounded. Is there any way whereby the landlord can be protected in terms of like the repair costs?
In a way, they can, as I said, they can sue the student for the repair costs. Having said that, we're looking at how deep the pockets the student have, and if it's a foreign student, they will have went home. But once again, I think it circles back to the whole having a good relationship with the tenant. Because one of the clauses within the tenancy agreement itself is that the place must be kept in good and repairable use.
Yes.
Something of that sort.
Right.
The cleverer agents or the more cunning ones, depending how they look at it. Naturally, they will establish a good relationship with the tenants, and then on the basis that they are bringing people in to look at the location for the new agents, they can then ascertain the state of the house, and if the state of the house falls far below that is required of the contract, we can evict. In fact, I've evicted a few students like that.
It's good to
Actually,
know.
there's one good tip to share with the landlord.
Yes.
Like for example, if the landlord has their own air condition servicing company,
Yes.
we can always encourage the tenant to use the landlords as long as the rates are decent and reasonable.
Right.
So anytime these guys, when they go and do servicing, right, aircon servicing, they can help the landlord to so-called like
Eyeball.
check,
Gather
eyeball a bit.
intelligence.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's a
think that's
good
going to
one.
be something quite
Yeah.
useful.
Yes, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this last question that we really want to check with you, because being a landlord for residential, okay, is what we have just discussed. Is there any difference between a residential landlord and a commercial landlord?
I think not so much, but from what I experience the commercial landlords, what happens is they have a lot of fixtures, meaning they'll build cupboards and all sorts of things, because some people will like their office to look a certain way.
Yeah.
So almost always when they abandon premises, and almost always they will abandon premises,
Yep.
the amount of money to put the location back to vacant possession will almost certainly outstrip your your security deposit.
Yes.
True.
So that is something that most commercial landlords need to take concern of.
Once again, Stephen, thanks so much for sharing about the
No problem.
landlord's portion. I think the audiences who wants to be a landlord will probably want to find out more. So once again, if you like to find out more on the topics of landlord or the concern of landlord, you can contact Jamie Lee, who is the Business Development Manager of Matthew Chiong Partnership. I'm Ning Yap.
I'm Michelle Yap, and do remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check back again on the next episode where we're going to discuss about the tenant's perspective, and I'm sure this is something that you'll be very keen to find out, and we'll see you soon.